Okay, we're on lesson 7, which is going to be on the distance between two rational numbers. So to get started, we do have an exercise. So what I'm going to have you do is, in class we were doing this with our shoulder partners, but right now I'm just going to have you be person A. So you're going to go through person A's column and fill in those answers. And so while you do that, just pause the video when you're all set, unpause the video, and check your work. Okay, so this goes back to what we were doing with our counting on a number line, but this is different. It's asking what the distance is between -4 and 5. So what we should have here is we're not finding the sum. We should be starting at 0 for both of our numbers. So to -4 and to 5. And when we count up between them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, they are 9 units apart. So that's what the distance between those two numbers is. I'm going to do that again for -5 and -3. So from 0 to -3 and 0 to -5. So between those two numbers, there are 2 units. And last one, 7 and -1. So I'm going to show 7 and -1. And when I count up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, their distance is 8 units. So that's how we'd find it on a number line. But there's actually a formula that we can use to solve this on the next page. So this exercise says, use the number line to answer each of the following questions. What is the distance between -2 and -1 1/2? So I'm going to change this. So this is -2. And remember, -1 and 1/2 can be changed to -1.5. And I'm going to show the distance between those numbers. So I have got -2 and about -0.5 is like right here. So that is a distance of only 0.5. So when we talk about the distance between two rational numbers, we actually have a formula. So it says find the distance between -3 and 2 first using the number line. So let's just show that on the number line. Start at 0, go to -3. So there's -3. I'm going to go over to 2. There's 2. So the distance between those, 1, 2, 3, 4, is 5 units. But if I don't have a number line, I can use this formula here. So the two numbers, P and Q, the distance is the absolute value of their difference. So distance means difference. Okay, so distance means difference. So if I have -3 and 2, P is the first number, Q is the second number, and I'm going to plug that into my formula. So the absolute value of P minus Q, so -3 minus 2. I'm going to solve what's inside first. Well, let's use my rules. So leave, change, change. So leave, change, change. This is going to be 3 plus 2, and then they're both negative, so -5. But it's absolute value, so my answer should be 5. So their distance is 5 units. So now it says, let's go back and find the distance between our two numbers using the formula. So we're going to go back to the first page. So for the first one, I'm going to have -4 minus 5. I'm using my distance formula. So I'm going to leave, change, change, -4 plus -5. Well, that's -9, but the absolute value of -9 is 9. So P, Q, my formula, remember, P minus Q. I'm going to plug those in. -5 minus, be careful here, minus -3. I have to leave, change, change. So leave -5, change, change. So now this is -5 plus 3. So 5 minus 3 is 2, should be negative 2 since the 5 is bigger. Absolute value of negative 2 is 2, so we should have 2 units. Distance between 7 and negative 1, P and Q. So I should have 7 minus, remember, put your negatives in parentheses, negative 1 equals, now leave change, 7 plus 1, that's how we get a total of 8. Absolute value of positive 8 is positive 8. Okay, we're going to go back to exercise 2 and do the same thing. So absolute value, P minus Q. So negative 2 minus, use parentheses, negative 1 1/2. If you want to change that to a decimal, you can. Plus 1.5. That's going to give us a negative 0.5. So I should be finding the absolute value, which would be a positive half. On to the next page. So example 2, change in elevation versus distance. So remember, distance is always going to be positive. When we talk about a change in elevation or a temperature, it could be positive or negative depending on whether it's going to increase or decrease, so if it's going up or going down. So our first example says, a hiker starts hiking at the beginning of a trail at a point which is 200 feet below sea level. He hikes to a location on the trail that is 580 feet above sea level and stops for lunch. What is the vertical distance between 200 feet below sea level and 580 feet above sea level? So let's first just take a look at our keywords. So it says 200 feet below. Below would be in the negatives. 500 feet above would be a positive number. And we want the distance, so I'm going to write my formula. P minus Q. So first value where they started minus where they ended, so P minus Q. And I'm going to plug those in. So 200 feet below, so negative 200 minus 580 feet above, so that's a positive value. Oops. So negative 200 minus 580, I'm going to leave change. So negative 200 plus negative 580. So it means I'm adding those values together. 5, 6, 7. So it should be a negative 780. But I want the absolute value, so I have a distance of 780 feet. So how should we interpret this in the context of the problem? Well, that means if he started at 200 feet below the sea level and got all the way up to 580 feet above, that means he has climbed. So the hiker climbed or had an elevation gain, if anyone's hikers, of 780 feet. And if you have a smartwatch, your smartwatch will actually tell you your elevation gain when you are hiking or even just on a walk. All right, next problem. It says, after lunch, the hiker hiked back down the trail from the point of elevation, which is 580 feet above sea level, to the beginning of the trail, which is 200 feet below sea level. So what is the vertical distance between 580 feet above, 200 feet below? So this might look familiar as what we just did, but the order is different, so we have to keep that in mind. Our order matters. So I'm going to find the distance. Remember, my first number is P, second number is Q. So 580 minus negative 200, because it's 200 feet below. I'm going to leave change. 580 plus a positive 280. Oops. So when I add these, I'm going to get 780. I'm finding the absolute value. So 780 was the distance. So the change in elevation again was still 780 feet. Okay, that is all for this lesson. Good luck on your homework.